brave amigos are we. Brother to brother and everyone, a brave amigo. Wherever they need us, our destinies lead us. Amigos, we're always together. Wherever we go with three brave amigos, and we'll be amigos forever. We are the three amigos. We are the three amigos. We are the three amigos, and amigos forever will be.
Viva los amigos! In this episode of Hollywood Multipass, we're taking a look at the instant classic, The Three Amigos, in our retro review. Brief synopsis of this film is that three silent Hollywood movie actors, they get fired, so they're looking for the next thing for themselves to do. And they get word of a performance with the infamous El Guapo in the town of Santo Poco. Once they get to the town of Santo Poco, they quickly learn that they weren't called there to perform with El Guapo, but rather do what they were seen on screen doing and fight for the people and push the villainous murderers out. They then find themselves in a situation where they have to decide for themselves, do I want to fight for the town of Santo Poco and kick out this evil, murderous, and villainous El Guapo, or do I want to hit the road and get back to Hollywood where I have nothing left? And that's where this movie comes to life. This movie stars Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase. I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit that up until recently I didn't know that this movie was actually the place where Steve Martin and Martin Short met for the first time. And it's also Martin Short's movie debut. I'm a huge fan of Steve Martin and Martin Short. I love their comedy and their movies. They went on to star in two more movies together, Follow the Bride Part 1 and 2, and they also have an awesome Netflix special called An Evening You Will Forget for the Rest of Your Life. This movie was directed by John Landis, who's best known for Animal House and Blues Brothers. I really like his take on the Three Amigos here because he allows the three actors to really make those characters their own. In fact, in an interview with John Landis, someone asked him what his favorite part about shooting was, and he said, you know what? This movie provided one of my most favorite moments of working with an actor. And he said, Chevy Chase came up to me one day and said, hey, John, I don't want to say this line. He's like, why don't you want to say it? He said, well, my character would have to be a moron to say this line. And John Landis thinks to himself, your character's name is Dusty Bottoms. What movie do you think you've been filming this whole time? So he just thinks that to himself, and then he goes over to Martin Short. He's like, hey, Marty, I have a line you want to say. It's hilarious. And Chevy Chase goes, no. It's okay. I'll say it. Chevy Chase kind of has this label over his head of being hard to work with. And when I hear stories like this, it totally makes sense. Come to think of it, Chevy Chase, in my opinion, isn't really even present in the movie. Steve Martin and Martin Short kind of take it away. And it makes me wonder if there are more moments like this where Chevy Chase didn't want a part. And we didn't hear about it, but that's how his character kind of got lost. When it comes to the casting of this movie, the three that were actually casted weren't the original grouping. So Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase were not the original grouping. Steve Martin always was. He was always part of the three. But other actors that were discussed were John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Robin Williams, and Rick Moranis. Those are some big names. A huge reason as to why we do have the grouping of Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase is because this movie took 6 years to make. It started production in 1980 and didn't finish until 1986. So all these other actors that were listed got busy with their own projects and weren't available for the Three Amigos. I personally have to say that I'm relieved that actors like Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Rick Moranis weren't available for this project because they contributed so much to the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters came out during that 6-year period. I can't imagine a world without the Ghostbusters. In fact, Netflix has a series called The Movies That Made Us, and they put that on there. And because Ghostbusters was so influential. When it comes to Robin Williams, I don't know if he would have fit in the tone of the movie that it has right now. If he was selected as one of the parts, the movie would have taken a different direction, in my opinion. He does have the ability to be like a chameleon, and he can play all these different characters, and he can adapt to whatever tone and cadence the movie has, but I think Robin Williams really wouldn't have played the adaptive role, but rather a very controlling role and move the movie into a different direction. I like the way the movie is right now, so it's hard for me to say that I wanted Robin Williams in one of those roles. Now, there's one actor that was listed that I do wish was in this movie, and it's Rick Moranis. I really love Rick Moranis, and I think that if he would have fit into one of those roles, it would have been Chevy Chase's character, Dusty Bottoms, because I think that that's just him. I think those are the roles and characters that he naturally plays, and I think he would have hit it out of the park. Now, I understand why Rick Moranis left the movie industry. I respect him for that, and I'm just going to leave it alone. But when I hear that Rick Moranis was considered for movies like this, and he wasn't selected, I feel cheated out of a Rick Moranis movie. I can only watch, Ghostbusters, Little Shop of Horrors, Little Giants, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids so many times before I kind of get sick of them. But I really do like Rick Moranis' performances. The truth is, though, that Rick Moranis was up for Ned Niederlander, who is Martin Short's character. And if I have to weigh the options between the two, Martin Short or Rick Moranis, given the performance that Martin Short had and that this was his movie debut, I would pick Martin Short over Rick Moranis. So I guess I would leave it the way that it is. Among others that were supposed to be working on this film, Steven Spielberg was actually supposed to direct it, but he chose to do E.T. instead. I think we're all grateful that he did E.T. This movie for me was an instant classic. Unfortunately, anytime I referenced the movie outside my family, nobody knew what I was saying. So I couldn't say lines like, "Can I have your watch when you are dead? This town's getting too rough for me," or "It's a sweater!" And people have no idea what's going on. They don't know what I'm talking about. Even though I consider this movie to be iconic, the reviews were mixed. Critics like Roger Ebert, in 1986 when it came out, said, "My guess is they made it with too much confidence and not enough desperation."
What are we gonna do? We're not gonna get paid, that's for sure.
So I guess he's critiquing it for not trying hard enough? Okay. While on the other hand, LA Times called it one of the best comedies of the year. Those were both reviews given in 1986. Looking at the reviews now, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a score of 46%, while the audience score is at 67%. IMDb, which are audience ratings, scores it as 6.5 stars. It's safe to say that this movie got a lot of mixed reviews, which is very common when it comes to comedies. It's really hard to get a top-tier comedy and have everyone like it because comedy is so subjective. In my opinion, I think it deserves way more than that. On my IMDb account, I gave it an 8 stars. A reason as to why I want to give it a much higher rating is because it's so influential. A lot of movies came out after this one and took the plot. You have movies like Bug's Life, Galaxy Quest, Tropic Thunder, The Man Who Knew Too Little, which is a very unknown Bill Murray movie, and I would put it above Bill Murray movies like Caddyshack, Groundhog's Day, but people don't know about it, so check that one out. And these movies are taking the plot of where actors are placed into a situation where they think that they're supposed to be acting, but it's a real-life dangerous situation, and it's for comedic value.
Let me see that. Oh, great! Real bullets!
Oh, well. I'll keep this.
You're in a lot of trouble, mister!
As a general audience, all these movies get a pass because they executed the plot well. I think if they took the plot and didn't do well with it, we'd be a lot more upset at them for taking the plot from the Three Amigos or calling it more of a ripoff or stuff like that. Three Amigos to me is so funny. It has such a range from starting with musical numbers all the way to slapstick comedy and everything in between. I feel like there are parts of this movie who really can be directed and engage different audiences, which again is why I think this comedy deserves more.
My little buttercup has the sweetest smile.
What is happening around here today? Are gringos falling from the sky?
Yes, el guapo.
It provides such a wide range. It's not one little niche avenue where if you don't think that's funny, you're not going to watch it. Because of this movie, we have the spawning of the dynamic duo of Steve Martin and Martin Short. Also because of this movie, I've learned life lessons like what a plethora is, and if I don't know what something is, that I don't say I know what it is. I learned that when summoning the invisible swordsman, one must always fire up and not sideways. And most importantly, I learned how to identify a mail plane. In our retro review rating system of buy, rent, and pass, I give this one a buy. It's definitely something you want to have on hand and in your DVD collection so that you can watch it whenever you want, which might be often. Anyway, please leave your thoughts, comments below. I know I'm not the only one who loves this movie, so please share your thoughts and your cherished memories. As always, please leave a like and subscribe. We would appreciate it a lot. It'll help us get our channel to where we would like it to be. Down below, I also left some links to some articles that give you some more trivia knowledge and behind-the-scenes factoids which you might appreciate. But until then, this has been Hollywood Multipass. See you guys.
Night, Lucky. Night, Dusty.
Good night, Ned.
Good night, Ned.
Good night, Ned.